Good afternoon, students. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
I had some laptop issue, so I had to join and restart and come. That's why I got late. Sorry for the delay. Uh, we'll get started. So, last topic that we discussed yesterday was pitch, right? I hope you guys remember all these things. So, I hope there is no doubt from yesterday's class, right? No.
No doubt, sir.
So, the next concept that we are going to discuss is cyclotron. Yesterday I told you, right? Cyclotron is a device which is used to, why is it used? It is used to accelerate charged particles, right? So it is mainly used to accelerate charged particles. Yes. Now see. So I'm going to show you a video on how this cyclotron actually is going to work. Cyclotron. 1 minute. See. So the topic now we are going to discuss is cyclotron.
One of the most interesting applications of motion of charged particles in electric and magnetic fields is the cyclotron. It is a machine used to accelerate charged particles. E.O. Lawrence and M.S. Livingston invented this machine in 1934.
Okay. So what exactly happens is, yesterday what were we discussing? We discussed about the motion of a charged particle in, what did we discuss, guys? We discussed about the motion of a charged particle in uniform magnetic field, right? There are three different ways in which you can project them. So based on that, the particle will take a particular path. Now, the question is, what is going to happen if you have a combined electric and magnetic field and a charged particle is projected into it? Okay, so what is going to happen? That's what this cyclotron is. So it uses the principle that there are going to be crossed electric and magnetic field. When I say cross, they are going to be perpendicular to each other. Okay, so that's the thing written here. See, are you able to read the statement? One of the most interesting applications of motion of charged particles in electric and magnetic fields is cyclotron. So it is going to have a combined effect. Okay, so before that, I have certain questions to ask. So yesterday we discussed about the charged particle in magnetic field. Now let's recollect. I'm going to put a question. Listen to this carefully. What happens if a charged particle is projected in the direction of electric field? If it is a positively charged particle, if it is projected in the direction of electric field, what will happen to the charged particle?
It experiences a force.
Of how much value? Perfect answer. It experiences a force, 100% right. Of how much value? If the
Q
charge,
into E.
Opposite negative sign.
it is Q into E. That's right. That's it. Okay. But what happens when a charged particle is projected in the direction of magnetic field, according to Lorentz force?
There's no force.
It will not experience force. But the question is it going to move? Most of us have a misconception. No force means it will not move. But is the particle going to move?
Yes, it will move.
Yes, it will move, but with a uniform velocity. So there is a minor difference here. When the same charge particle is projected into the electric field, it experiences a force of QE in the direction of it if it is a positively charged particle. Whereas in the case of magnetic field, it doesn't experience force at all. Now the second question. If the charged particle is projected perpendicular to the electric field, what do you think is going to happen? If it is, wait, before you answer, if the charged particle is projected perpendicular to the magnetic field, what happens to it?
Experiences a force QVB.
It experiences force, that's right. What is the path taken by the particle?
Straight line, sir.
Jai, check your notes and tell me.
Circular, sir. Spherical path. Circular. Sorry, sir. Uniform circular.
Circle is different, sphere is different. A circle is two-dimensional, sphere is three-dimensional. So don't use both the terms together. It is only a circular path, two-dimensional shape. It is going to move in a uniform circular motion. Now the question is, if I replace the magnetic field with electric field, when the charged particle is projected into it, what do you think will happen? It starts moving in a, this is where we need to understand. It starts moving in a dash path.
Straight line.
It will not move in a straight line.
Parabolic path, sir.
Very good. It will move in a parabolic path. Okay, so have these things in mind, and now look at this particular experiment. You will have a better understanding. Okay, there is a reason why both the fields are used together, especially in a crossed manner. Electric field and magnetic field will be perpendicular to each other. See what is going to happen.
In electric and magnetic fields, E.O. Lawrence and M.S. Livingston invented the
So these two scientists, E.O. Lawrence and M.S. Livingston, together in the year 1934, they invented this mission. They mainly invented to accelerate the charged particles. If you look at the reactions like nuclear fission, you need a fast moving particle to create some collision and the reaction to begin. So at that time, you need the charged particles to get more accelerated. At that point of time, you can use cyclotron as an intermediate phase.
machine in 1934. Let us first try to understand what a cyclotron is made up of on a fundamental level. Well, to start with, we have an electromagnet.
See, listen. You're able to see these two silver plates, right? Round plates. These are magnets, okay? And these blue color lines are magnetic field. They are the magnetic field lines. They are from the bottom plate to the top plate. So bottom plate acts as the north pole, top plate acts as the south pole. Because magnetic field outside the magnet is from north to south pole, right? It is going to be in that direction. Okay, so here they are saying we have an electromagnet which continuously generates a magnetic field as shown there. The magnetic field is directed vertically up.
Which continuously generates a magnetic field as shown here. Here, the magnetic field goes from the bottom to the top. Inside this magnetic field, we have.
So in this region of magnetic field, they will place two other metallic plates which take the shape of D. If you guys have textbook or PDF version of it, please have a look at it. Okay, so what will happen is they will be in the shape of 2Ds, which are generally called as DEES. Okay, these are the metallic plates. They will be named as D1 and D2, and these metallic plates will be connected to some electric source. Okay, have this in your mind.
Have two metallic plates, D1 and D2. They're also called Ds, as they are in the shape of the letter D. Both these magnetic fields are connected to an alternating electric source, which changes the polarity of the.
So listen, both these metallic actually not magnetic, both these metallic plates are connected to an alternating. You are able to see a clip here, one clip here and one clip here. These are the polarities. They are connected like this. And let's see what is going to happen.
Electric field periodically. Now imagine a charged particle.
See, now I have a question. Even before we proceed,
Particle B, a proton, for example.
so you're able to see a charged particle here, right? So if the charged particle is kept here, now we need to think what exactly will happen. Okay. So first question, is the charged particle going to fall down because of gravity? The answer is no.
No, sir.
Because the gravitational force is very weak compared to these two forces. Okay, that is eliminated. Secondly, is the charged particle going to see there is a particle kept at rest. Okay, it is not given any velocity or anything. The particle is kept there. Initially, what is the field it is going to interact with? The charged particle initially is going to interact with the magnetic field. Correct? So let's recollect all the concepts that we discussed yesterday. When a charged particle is kept at rest in a magnetic field, is it going to move?
No, sir.
Why?
Because V is 0, sir, then the
Velocity
force
is
is
zero.
also 0,
Velocity
sir.
is zero.
V and F is 0, sir.
That's right. So Lorentz force is saying that F is equal to QVB sine theta. When V is 0, obviously the particle is not going to move. Whatever is the orientation, we are not worried about it. Now, to make this particle move on its own, okay, without applying, like, see, we need, according to Newton's law, we know that there is an external force that is needed to push the particle into a motion, right? So for that, what we are going to do is remember that this is a charged particle. So these metallic plates are there, right, to which the the polarities are connected. And these polarities, remember, they will be changed after regular intervals of time. I'll tell you why it is changed so. There is a reason for it. Okay, now listen to this carefully. If one of the plates is given positive and the other is given negative, what do you think will happen?
So the charge won't move. It will be in the center middle part.
Okay, charge will move in which direction?
Sir, if it is positive, it will go to negative. If negative, it will go to the positive end.
That's right. It will go in the direction of electric field if it is positive. Here it is a positively charged particle. Have that in your mind.
Is at the center of the cyclotron.
Okay,
This
now listen.
proton will be attracted towards the negative plate, D2. As
So, listen, the blue color plate is given a negative charge and the pink color plate is given positive charge. So the proton is obviously going to move towards the blue color plate, right? The D's are like this and the magnetic field is in this direction. So the particle attain velocity in which direction with respect to magnetic field?
Perpendicular direction.
Perpendicular direction. From yesterday's concept, when a charged particle is given a velocity perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field, what will be the path taken by it? Obviously,
Uniform circular.
obviously, yes. Obviously, it is going to be a circular path. See, that is why observe the particle is going to take a circular turn.
it enters the plate, it is acted upon by the magnetic field, and we know that a charge moving with a velocity v perpendicular to the magnetic field B will move in a circular fashion. As soon as the
Okay, now what will happen? It would have completed half a revolution by the time it is leaving the plate. At that point of time, what they will do is they will reverse the polarities. When they reverse the polarity, what are they trying to do? Have it as a cycle. Initially, the particle had zero velocity. So it was the electric field which was responsible for the particle to go into motion. Accepted? So it is because of the electric field, the particle had an acceleration. Acceleration means increase in velocity. Now what you're doing is when you're reversing the polarity of electric field, the already existing velocity will increase. Why? The already existing velocity is going
Subtracted again to negative side.
because it is already having velocity now after half a circle, right? So it will have more velocity, due to which can you go and revisit your notes and tell me what is going to be the radius of the circular path?
Sir, mv by qb.
M into V divided by qb. So can I say radius is proportional to velocity? So now since after half a revolution the velocity has increased, the radius of the circular path will also increase. Look at the way it is going to move.
the proton exits the plate and enters the gap, the polarity of the plates changes, and D1 becomes negatively charged. Hence, B will now get attracted towards D1 and will accelerate towards it. This increases the energy of the particle P. As it enters D1 due to the magnetic field, it will start moving along a circular path. This time, as it got accelerated while entering, the radius of the circular path will be more. Again, as it exits.
Okay. Again, what will happen? Here it will complete half a revolution, then the polarity will be changed. Then what will happen? Its velocity will again increase. When velocity is increasing again, it is going to have a bigger radius. As a result of which, due to the combined electric and magnetic field, the particle will neither move in a circular path nor in a straight line path. Rather, it will move in a spiral path. You're able to understand? Look at the way it is going to move.
This D1, the polarity gets reversed, and Now, D2 gets negatively charged. Hence, P will now get attracted towards D2 and will accelerate towards it. This increases the energy of the particle P further. As it enters D2 due to the magnetic field, it will start moving along a circular path. But this time, as it got accelerated while entering, the radius of the circular path will be more. This cycle continues, and the particle P keeps on moving spirally. To maintain this spiral movement, the polarities of the Ds.
So we know that the polarity is changed, but what is the right time to change that polarity so that the desired result is acquired? Okay, it is very simple. To maintain this kind of a spiral movement, please make a note. The polarities of the Ds have to be reversed in a time interval of t by 2, where capital T is the period of revolution of the particle. Means, if the particle takes time t to complete one full revolution, by the time it is able to complete half a revolution itself, the polarity should be changed so that this result can be acquired. Okay, write it down. I hope it is done. Next.
Has to be reversed in a time interval t by 2, where t is the period of revolution of the particle. T equals 1 by Bc.
Okay. From here, we can do it on our own. I will show the derivation later, but I want you to see the way the particle is going to come out.
Using a magnetic field.
See, look at the way it is going to move. Its speed will increase.
They then leave the system via an exit slit. This accelerated particle can then be used for bombarding other atoms, molecules, or solids according to the requirement. We know that V equals Q.
Guys, did you understand what will happen? So this is all about cyclotron. Now I will show you the technical part of it.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, yesterday you said when a charged particle on entering the magnetic field experiences force, like starts to experience force, sir. And today, you said it is not experiencing force, sir.
I would have told about directions.
Oh, okay, sir.
I would have definitely told about directions.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Listen. So this is a diagram when you see it from the top view. Okay, you're able to see these blue color dots, right? These blue color dots represent the magnetic field. When a particle is kept here, it will start, first it will experience the force due to the electric field. Then it will start moving in a spiral path. Then through this exit port, the charged particle will come out with a greater velocity. Okay, now comes an important question. What is the speed or what is the energy with which the particle is going to come out? For that, it's very simple. See, the particle, before it comes out, it is going to travel. It is going to travel in a spiral path of maximum radius, capital R, where capital R is nothing but the radius of one of the Ds. Okay, the radius of one of the Ds. So can I write R is equal to M into V divided by Q into B? Where this V is the velocity with which it is coming out at the final instant. Then can I write V is equal to Q into B into R divided by M? Right. So what is the only energy with which the particle is going to come out? It is going to be kinetic energy, and the kinetic energy of the particle is half mv square or half m into q square b square r square divided by m square. M and m will get cancelled. So q square b square r square divided by 2m is going to be the energy with which the particle is going to come out. Okay. So that's all with the derivation also, nothing else. Okay. And this value I would have already told it to you. Frequency is equal to QB divided by 2 pi m, which is also called as cyclotron frequency. Yesterday itself I would have told you. Okay. That's it. So remaining story and all, I'm expecting you to read from your textbook on your own. I've explained the major part of it. Okay. You need to only revise it. Let's do a problem based on this. Then we will go to the next concept. 4.4. A cyclotron's oscillator frequency is 10 megahertz. So the frequency of the oscillator is 10 megahertz. What should be the operating magnetic field for the protons? So B is equal to how much? If the radius of the Ds is 60 centimeter or 60 into 10 power minus 2 meter, what is the kinetic energy of the proton beam produced by the accelerator? E is equal to 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 is given. All those things are given. Okay. So we know the formula F is equal to QB divided by 2 pi m. So F is given, Q is given, M is given. One unknown, one equation, you can calculate the value of B. Okay. That's it, right? So they ask what is the kinetic energy also. Kinetic energy formula is Q square B square R square divided by 2m. So you know Q, B you can find it from the previous problem, substitute it here, R you know, divided by 2m. So if you substitute everything, you will get the answer in terms of joule. If the joule you divide it with 1.6 into 10 power minus 13, then you are going to get mega electron volt.
So can you say again, sir?
You will get the answer in terms of joule, and here they have given, you know, MeV stands for mega electron volt or million electron volt. Million means 10 power 6. 10 lakhs is 1 million. So 1 million electron volt is 1.6 into 10 power 13. So you get the answer in joule, no? To convert it to million electron volt, divide it with 1.6 into 10 power minus 13 like this. Then you will get the answer in terms of mega electron volt. And that's what million electron volt. Okay. So this is all about cyclotron as I mentioned. And the last concept with respect to the charged particle moving in magnetic field is this thing. It's called as velocity selector, and it is very, very important. Okay. So write down the heading. Many times they ask for 2 marks, or sometimes they will ask you problems also based on this. So if you have a good clarity on this, motion in combined electric and magnetic fields. Okay. So here the question is, if they give you electric field and magnetic field mutually perpendicular to each other, then you need to choose a particular velocity and direction and project the charged particle into this combined electric and magnetic field, combined crossed electric and magnetic field in such a way that the particle that you're trying to project into this combined effect should move undeviated. Okay. I've already put all the questions, all the permutations and combinations of questions I've already put. Now you need to think. Electric field is like this. If I project the particle perpendicular to the electric field, it will start moving in a parabolic path. If I project it in the direction of electric field, it is going to move in a due to if you project the particle in the direction of electric field, it starts moving in a straight line path. So there is no possibility for the charged particle to move with the constant velocity in electric field. But in magnetic field, yes, it has a possibility when you project it in the direction of magnetic field. But listen to this carefully. Let us say you have an electric field in the direction of positive y-axis, and magnetic field in the direction of positive z-axis. Okay, and if the charged particle is given a velocity, listen to this carefully, if the charged particle is given a velocity in the positive x direction, now think what is going to happen with respect to the electric field. Due to the electric field, the electrostatic force is going to be in the upward direction. Now, what is going to be the direction of magnetic force? FB is equal to Q into V vector cross B vector, guys. So Q is positive. Here it is a positively charged particle. Okay. V vector is V I cap cross B vector is B K cap. So QVB into I cap cross K cap, which is going to be QVB in the direction of minus J cap. Guys, are you able to understand? So electric force will be in the upward direction and magnetic force will be in the downward direction. And particle is moving in which direction? The particle is moving in the positive x direction. Okay, now I have an important question. Listen to this carefully. When will this particle be able to move in the same straight line path in which it is already entered? When will this particle be able to continue its journey in the same direction? It is only when the electric force and the magnetic force are balancing out each other. Right? If there is an unbalanced force, let's go back to the 9th standard. If there is an unbalanced force, the particle starts moving in that particular direction. But what is that we need? Both the forces that are there, they're fortunately acting in the perpendicular direction. So if you are able to nullify the net effect in the perpendicular direction, then you can say that the particle is still going to continue in the straight line path. That's what is given here. See, so electrostatic force acts in the j cap direction and magnetic force acts in the minus j cap direction. Thus, electric and magnetic force are opposite directions shown in, are in opposite directions as shown in the figure. Suppose we adjust the value of E and B such that the magnitudes of two forces are equal, then the total force acting the y direction will be 0, as a result of which the charged particle will be able to move undeflected. So in that scenario, can I write QE is equal to Q into V into B? Q and Q will get cancelled. V will be equal to E divided by B. Means if you have crossed electric and magnetic fields, then you need to project a particle perpendicular to the direction of perpendicular to the direction of both the fields with a velocity equal to E divided by B.
Sir, so electric field and magnetic field should be equal, right? For a particle to move.
If they're equal, velocity of the particle will always be 1.
Oh, okay.
They need not be equal. They should be perpendicular to each other. They can have different magnitudes. That's why it is told here. Suppose we adjust the value of E and B in such a way that the magnitudes of forces are equal. Actually, there is a mistake here. It is not QB, it is QVB. Excuse me. Okay. So where is this used? This condition can be used to select charged particles of a particular velocity out of a beam containing charges moving with different speeds irrespective of their charge and mass ratio. So listen, the crossed, what do you mean by cross? Cross means perpendicular. Crossed electric and magnetic fields therefore serve as velocity selector. So only those particles which have the speed equal to E by B pass undeflected through the region of crossed fields. So this was a method employed by Thomson. I know you, I hope you would have learnt about the charge by mass ratio in your chemistry. So in 1897, Thomson did a cathode ray tube experiment, CRT, cathode ray tube based experiment in which he tried to calculate the charge by mass ratio of an electron. Okay. So at that point, they will be using it. Mostly the applications part will not be asked. They will ask you how to calculate the velocity selector. But it's better you understand these small things also. Am I clear till this point, guys? So with this, one major topic that is over is, we have seen all the combinations of possibilities of a charged particle moving in a magnetic field. Now, the next topic that we need to see is, what will happen if you place, so write down the next topic, current carrying conductor placed in uniform magnetic field. So when you take a current carrying conductor and place it in a uniform magnetic field, what is going to happen? So in the beginning of this chapter, you would have learned, if you have a current carrying conductor, there is a magnetic field around it. But now the question is, you already have magnetic field. What will happen if you place a current carrying conductor in that magnetic field? So let's see. Okay. Let's say you have a current carrying conductor like this, which is of length L, and it is placed in a uniform magnetic field of value B. And let's say the current in this conductor is flowing in this direction. Let me call it as I. Okay. Now listen. If the current is flowing in this direction, let's say the axis of this current carrying conductor is making an angle theta with the value of B. So when I try to turn B and C, let's say B is like this, and the current carrying conductor is like this with the current I in it. For the time being, I've just drawn it. So if I take this angle as theta, and if the length of this conductor is taken to be L, okay, now see what is going to happen. So when the current is flowing in this direction, what is the direction of electron? Is it not exactly in the opposite direction? So if I look on a microscopic level, the electrons will be traveling in the direction opposite to that of the current, with a value of, with a velocity called as the drift velocity. Right? So let's say, since the length of the conductor is L, let me calculate the force experienced by electron. So what is going to be the force experienced by electron? It is charge of the electron into Vd into d into sine theta. Accepted? I didn't take the minus sign here because I was not concerned about the direction. Direction I thought I can take care of it later. So I am interested only to calculate what is the force experienced by one electron. I'll make it more specific. One electron or an electron. Then what is going to be the force experienced by n electrons, guys? It is going to be capital N into E into Vd into d sine theta. Does it make sense? Now comes another question. If I divide with T and compensate it with T, what does this N into E stand according to quantization of charge?
Q.
So it is Q divided by T, right? What is this Q divided by T called as? Can I call it as current into, what can I call this Vd into Ts? Distance into velocity into time is nothing but the distance into d sine theta, right? This is going to be the total force experienced by a current carrying conductor when it is placed in uniform magnetic field. So this I can write it as F is equal to B into I into L sine theta, or I into L vector cross B vector. And remember, this force is also perpendicular to the direction of L vector and B vector.
So could you scroll up a bit?
Is this fine?
So the first diagram.
You can actually take this itself as first diagram because it's easier. You can take this as the first.
So I have a doubt.
Tell me.
Last statement you told was that the force is perpendicular, right?
Force is perpendicular to both length and magnetic field because you're doing cross product.
Okay, sir.
Done? Okay. So going forward, you can have this in your mind. That force experienced by a current carrying conductor when it is placed in a magnetic field is I into L vector cross B vector. Okay. So one small correction, did I give it a uniform field? Okay. It need not be uniform field, it can be any magnetic. Please cut off that word alone. Current carrying conductor placed in external magnetic. Need not be uniform because vectors will take care of other factors. Okay. Now listen to this carefully, guys. Now, force between two parallel current carrying conductors. So you have two parallel current carrying conductors and our work is to calculate the force between them. Okay. Let's say they both are separated by distance d. Let's say the current in the first conductor is I1 and the current in the second conductor is I2. Now let's recollect all the basics that we know. So first, Oyster told that if you have a current carrying conductor, there is magnetic field around it. Accepted. Second, according to Lorentz force, we understood that when a current carrying conductor is placed in magnetic field, it will experience force. But here, what is happening is, these two current carrying conductors are separated by a certain distance. There is no magnetic field here for them to experience force. So what we are supposed to do is, listen to this again. If I take this as the first and the second conductor, now I'm using the Oester's rule stating that I1 will produce a magnetic field near the second location. So magnetic field produced due to the first coil, first wire near the second wire is how much? Mu naught. So what? So these are all infinite length wires, guys. They don't have finite length. So mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi into d. Guys, accepted? Due to an infinite length wire, there is going to be a magnetic field at location number 2. And if I put a vector symbol on top of it, I want you guys to find out the direction and tell me fast. What is the direction of magnetic field due to I1 at point 2 or near the conductor 2?
K cap, sir. So J cap then.
Apply right hand thumb rule. Don't guess.
Yes, on
No need
2
to
due
guess.
to I1, sir.
I1 near point 2. It will see I cap is in this direction.
Sir, it'll come towards point 2, sir.
Means it will be into the plane. I'm asking whether it is into the plane or out of the plane.
Into the
So
plane.
I1 is like, it is into the plane. I1 is like this. On the right hand side, it is going to be into the plane. It is minus k cap. Okay. Now, there is a magnetic field generated due to the first wire near the second point. So can I say that there is a magnetic field existing here? In which there is a current carrying conductor that is placed. So what will be the force experienced by the second due to 1, guys? That we just now saw. It is current in the second wire into, I need a particular length. So for that, what I will do is I will consider a small length. I'll consider a small length L2 for the time being. Okay. Or I will take it as L itself. So I2 into L vector cross B12 vector. So that will be I2 into, what is the direction of L vector? L vector will take the direction of current itself. L into, current is in upward direction. So it is J cap cross, what is B12, guys? It is mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi d in the direction of minus k cap. So what will you get? Mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d into L into J cap cross minus k cap. This I want you guys to do and tell me. What is J cross minus K?
Minus 1, sir.
Minus?
Minus 1, sir.
It will not be minus 1. You will get another vector only.
Minus I, sir.
It is minus I cap. How many of you are
But
not?
normally, like I cap into J cap, they say 1 more, sir.
No. How many of you are not confident with cross product things? So I'm able to understand that none of you are clear. Anyways. So you write IJK in the anti-clockwise direction. If you do the cross product between I and J, it will give you K cap. Cross product between J and K will give you I cap. Cross product between K and I will give you J cap. Okay. So anti-clockwise direction is positive. In a similar way, clockwise direction is negative. Okay, here the clockwise direction and anti-clockwise direction will be positive and negative, provided you write ijk in the anti-clockwise direction. Don't make the mistake of writing ijk in clockwise and again taking wrong signs. Then you will go wrong. So minus I cap is the answer here. So F21 will be equal to mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d into L in the direction of minus I cap. This L will come this side. So F21 vector divided by L is equal to, or I will write F21 by L is equal to mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d. Okay, if I put a vector on top of it, it is going to be minus I cap. Means this parameter is not force, rather this is called as the force per unit length. It's called as the force per unit length. Okay, so this is the force per unit length due to experienced by the second wire due to first. Now the vice versa will also happen, right? So due to I2, there will be a magnetic field at I1. So what is the value of B12, guys? Not B12, B21. Magnetic field due to the second conductor at point 1 is how much? Mu naught
2 by 2 pi.
mu naught I2 divided by 2 pi d in the direction of it is taken. Okay, because you apply right hand thumb rule and see. So current is in this direction. When you curl your fingers on the left hand side, it is out of the plane. So here it is out of the plane. Now the first current carrying conductor is placed in the magnetic field due to the second. So F12 vector is equal to I1 into, I will again take a small portion L on top of it. So I1 into L into what? L vector cross B21 vector. So I1 into, what is L vector, guys? It is L into J cap cross B21 is mu naught I2 divided by 2 pi d into K cap. So what will you get? Mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d into L into J cap cross K cap. What is the answer, guys?
I cap.
This is I cap. So mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d into I cap is what is F21 vector. You have an L here. This L will come this side, and this will be the final answer. This is what? This is also force per unit.
F12 vector, sir, or F21, sir?
F12, sorry. Okay, so if you observe, the force per unit length by the second wire and the force per unit length by the first wire are the same in terms of magnitude. You can check mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d. Here also mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d. But what is the difference?
Direction.
Sign direction.
So the first conductor experiences a force in the rightward direction. Second conductor experiences a force in the leftward direction. Hence, an important observation to be made from this is, if the currents in parallel wires are in the same direction, they get attracted. Unlike, you have a concept, right? Like charges repel. Similarly, we will start thinking if the currents are flowing in same direction, they will repel. No. When you have two parallel current carrying conductors and the current in both the wires are in the same direction, they tend to get attracted. So if you want to make them repel, you need to have the currents in the opposite direction.
I haven't done.
Tell me.
Why did we bring L to the left hand side, sir? We can't keep it on the right.
Why did I bring?
L to the left hand side. Is that what you're saying?
This one, huh?
Yes, sir. We brought it to the left hand side, force by length.
Oh, force by length, because L is not existing actually. What did I say in the beginning? I told it's an infinite length wire, right?
So we chose L, sir.
Sorry?
So we chose L.
L is some portion, right? L is some portion. It need not be anything. It can be some portion. See, what will happen is in this case, for infinite length wires, you cannot find the force. Rather, you're actually trying to find the force per unit length only. That is why I'm stressing again and again. Good that you brought that question. So F21 by L is what is mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d. The most common mistake I see is whenever force is asked, they will write mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d. They will forget that L. When they frame the question, no, whenever they ask the question like this, infinite length wire, they'll ask, what is the force experienced by 10 centimeter length of a wire? Then what are we supposed to do?
Play mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d into
Mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d, and take this L to the other side and multiply. There is a problem in textbook itself. Maybe next class I will start with that problem. Next class we'll start with exercise. We are almost on the verge of completing this chapter. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So that's it, guys. So this is all about the force per unit length. Okay. So next class I'm going to start with torque, because if I will start now also I can't finish in 10 to 15 minutes. So next class I'll start with torque. Then I will show you the applications of torque in a device called as galvanometer. With that, this chapter is done. Okay. So keep preparing, revise all these topics before you come to the next class so that you're able to solve the problems on your own. And I think most of you have problem with cross product. I suggest you guys to revise and come. Most of you are guessing answers. Don't do that. Okay. Any other doubt from today's class?
No doubts, sir.
Okay, you guys can leave.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, this is Vishnu. I sent my doubts to the number, sir.
Oh, you
Can
sent
you-
it on. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see it yesterday. I was busy. I'll check it today.
Yes, sir. Sir, can you do it now, sir, so that it will be easy for me?
I have class at 4. That is a problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.